And I think most of you have been here, which is, have you ever been in a situation where you thought, if I would have known that commitment entailed this, I wouldn't have done it? Anybody been there? I mean, most of us have been in that situation. We said yes way too quickly before counting the cost, right? Several years ago, I mean over a decade ago, I was in New Mexico with a family. It's around 2017, and I like to go hiking. I do. I like to go do the trails, and that's something that I enjoy doing. And so we went to this park. I went to this park, Carson Park, and there was this one board, and it had all the different trails. And I'm looking at it, and the one that's standing out to me, the one that's just kind of blaring at me is one that says 6 miles. And I'm like, I can do that. At that point, I was running a lot. I was like, this is easy. I'll do that. So the next day, I came back with a bag full of water, with some protein bars, and I was ready for my 6 mile, hike. And so I started going through the trail. Around mile 5, I run out of water. I was strategic. I had enough water for 6 miles. I ran out of water. My last protein bar was eaten already, and I see this fork in the mountain. And one of them is like less traveled. And I looked at the one that was really clean path. Up to that point, I hadn't seen anybody making the journey with me, either going up or coming from the other direction. And I was confused. I was like, I don't know which one to get. I think it's this one. So I took the one I thought was the best. Only to realize that by mile 6, I was exhausted, no water, no protein bars. And I was just like, the sun was beating on me. And I was looking at a tree, and I was thinking, man, I wonder if that's where I'm going to die. I was beat tired. I was thinking, man. And I started thinking like the worst case scenario, like you would think. It was supposed to be 6 miles. I'm in mile 6 at this point. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wonder how much it's going to cost for Marisa to call for somebody to rescue me as I bring the helicopter. Oh no, this is going to be crazy. I don't like this, right? So I keep on just tracking along the journey, and I'm starting to feel the fatigue of just going up the mountain, which should be going down, not up. And by mile 7, I bumped into someone that was going through the trail the opposite direction. And I was like, dude, how far am I to the end? And it's like, oh no, you're still several miles away. But it's that direction. So mile 8 hits. I start going now down the mountain. Mile 9, cramps. I don't know if you've ever gotten cramps. Now I know what it feels like to be pregnant and having no, my bad. My bad. And so it was just cramping. My legs are cramping. My arms are cramping. Mile 9, I'm like, okay, I wonder if this is it. My phone is almost completely dead. I'm tracking with a map in my phone. So instead of calling Marisa, which would have been oh no, let's send rescue, I called Nemi, my second oldest. I said, hey, Nemi, don't freak out. Don't tell your mom yet. But I've been hiking for 9 miles. I don't see an end in sight. I'm not sure when this thing is going to end. But I just want to let you know, try and track me, pin me where I'm at, because this phone is about to die. And if I don't call you back within the next 2 hours, come search for me. I was like, all right, Dad. And then boom, phone out, battery dead. Mile 10. I'm still going down the mountain. Finally, in the 11th mile, I get to the starting point or the ending point at that point. And I'm beat. I'm tired. I look at the sign again. And besides the 6 mile course is one that says 11-mile hike. And I thought to myself, if I would have known that I was going on the 11-mile hike, I probably would have not have done it. If I would have known the stress, the fatigue, the tiredness that I had at that point, I probably would not have taken that, at least not without thoughtful consideration. And you know what? Sometimes we do that in life. We say yes to things that later we find out, man, this is hard. I didn't think it was going to be this hard. I didn't think I was going to be this confused. It's like taking a Saturday project and telling your spouse, I'll knock this out in an hour. And then 2 hardware store trips later and missing one weird screw and instructions that look like it was written by a raccoon. The 1-hour project has just become a marriage conference, right? Sometimes we don't understand the cost until we're already too far in it. And that's how life gets overloaded. We say yes for that extra thing. We say, oh, it's only one extra responsibility. One more event, that's it, just one more event. One more burden. One more, I'll just handle it. I'll just go ahead and do it. Enough times of doing that, eventually we end up burned out. We end up exhausted, confused, and fatigued already. Over the course of the next couple weeks, I want to do a series to take you from burnout to balance. How do we balance out? How do we go from a place of like, I'm exhausted, I'm beat, I don't want to do anything else, to a place of, man, I'm really enjoying life now. We need to restore margin to our overloaded lives, because many of us have experienced overloaded lives. You know, some of you are not only going there, burnout, but some of you are actually there. You're not lazy, you're not weak, you're not a bad Christian, you're just tired. It was too much speed, it was too little margin, too many yeses, and too few pauses, not enough space for God to work. And before we can talk about how to slow down, let's be honest about what hurry does to us. Because it does a couple of things to our life when we're living a hurried lifestyle. For example, hurry makes you feel more stress. Hurry makes you feel more stress. Look with me in Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 6. It says, do not stare at me because I am darkened by the sun. Pause here for just a second. The king is courting this young lady, and this young lady is very insecure about how she looks. Her skin is very darkened. She's darker than the typical woman of the time. And then I want you to notice what she says. My mother's sons. What didn't he say? My brothers. He says, my mother's sons. He doesn't even say my brothers, because there's no relationship. They were angry with me and made me take care of the vineyards. My own vineyard I had to neglect. So she cared for other people's vineyard. She cared for other people's burden at the neglect of her own vineyard. That's a picture of being overloaded. The job becomes the vineyard that you take care of, or the children, maybe the aging parent, you're in that season of life now, or the crisis is the vineyard that you're just tending to everyone else's emotions, and in the process, you tend to neglect your own vineyard. Just like this lady was saying, I didn't take care of my own vineyard. Stress often happens when responsibilities keep moving up, they keep growing, but our reserves keep shrinking. And that's what it does to us. Hurry makes you lose your joy. Hurry makes you lose your joy. I want you to go to Job chapter 9, verse 25. It says, my days are swifter than a runner. My days are swifter than a runner. They fly away without a glimpse of joy. In other words, he's saying, the days are flying by. You're getting things done, but you don't really enjoy the day. You might have made the meeting, maybe you finished the project, you paid the bills, you got the kids out of the house and into the school, and now they're in the house and not in school. You survived the week, but at the end of the week and at the end of the day, you come to realize that you really didn't enjoy the family meal. You didn't enjoy the sunset. You didn't enjoy God's gift for you for that day. The day was swift, like the psalmist says. The faster you move, the less time you have to enjoy what God has already given you. And some of you may have heard the expression, well, the devil doesn't take a day off. Anybody ever heard that expression? Well, since when is the devil your model? Since when do we take our cue from the devil? Jesus is our model. And Jesus, you know what he did? He rested. He rested. God rested after creation, not because he needed to rest, because he was tired. He rested because he was showing us that stopping is part of a healthy rhythm. Hurry makes you less productive. Hurry makes you less productive. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 5 says, the plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. In other words, faster doesn't always mean better. Hurry gets sloppy. Hurry gets careless. Hurry gets reactive. And you know what hurry does? Hurry gets you relationally poor. Relationally poor. In Proverbs 19, verse 2, it says, desire without knowledge is not good. How much more will hasty feet miss the way? In other words, you can be excited for the wrong things. You can be passionate and foolish at the same time. You can move quickly and miss the way entirely. You can be excited and be wrong. You can be busy and at the same time be unfruitful. A lot of people are running hard in the wrong direction and calling it productivity. Ever been there? Where you did a lot, and at the end of the day, you're like, man, what did I do? You missed out a lot too. See, hurry doesn't always produce more. Sometimes hurry produces more mistakes. And in Proverbs, we see that a prepared person works wiser. They work wiser. You can't keep charging without recharging. You can't keep on going at 100 miles an hour without recharging. And for some of us, we need to hear that. We need to hear that like nothing else in life, because we're going way too fast for way too long. Now, the fourth thing is that hurry makes it harder to hear God. It makes it harder to hear God. For example, in Psalm 46, verse 10, it says, he says, be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Now, the interesting thing here is that the word still, the be still, the expression be still, is to let go. Has the idea of stop striving, unclench your grip. That's the idea of being still. And in Psalm 46, the world was shaking. The nations were in chaos. And God says, be still. Stop striving. Not because nothing is happening, but because God has everything under his control. Ever try to make a call and you get a busy signal? You can't really get in it. I think for some of us, we're getting, God's trying to speak to us, but all of our circuits are busy. And we're not listening. Hurry turns down the volume of God's voice. That's what hurry does. So how do we slow down? How do we live responsibly while still living our lives in a way that we can enjoy our lives? Well, let me give you a couple suggestions how to start slowing your pace. And the first one is this. You start slowing your pace when you stop the constant push for more. The constant push for more. And I can really relate to that. My personality is bent and geared towards doing more, and pushing the limits and push. That's just the way I'm wired. For many years, that was the case. And the push, at some point, especially during COVID, I realized I've been pushing so much, pushing the boundaries of what we can do, what I can do, only to realize that I lost connection from my own kids. And it was a rude awakening for me to realize that I was losing out, and so were they. And many of us are in that, with that personality or that phase in life where we're just pushing. Ecclesiastes 4:6 says something very sobering. It says, better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. In other words, one handful with peace is better than two handfuls with panic or anxiety. Now, don't get me wrong. Ambition is not bad. Ambition is how we get business started. It's how we pay the bills. Ambition is how we get through school and finish school. Ambition is how, churches help reach other people. But ambition without boundaries becomes a bulldozer. It can run over your health. It can run over your marriage. It can run over your children. It can run over your joy. And it can even run over your walk with the Lord. So many of us need to start asking the bigger question, which is, what is driving you to keep pushing for more? What is driving you? Some of you may be driving for more because you feel fearful. You're scared that what if you don't make enough? What if they don't have enough? Or maybe jealous. Well, if they have this, I got to get that too. Or you feel guilty for taking a break. Or maybe your ego is growing up is way too big. Maybe it's insecurity. If you feel insecure, maybe you're struggling with things like people will love me if I do more. And it's like, no, they won't. Or maybe you're insecure and you think, I'll prove my worth through my work. No, you can't. Listen, work matters, but work is not worth. Productivity is not your identity. Your calendar doesn't give you value. God does. Usefulness to people is not the same as being beloved before God. Not the same. And in Proverbs chapter 14, verse 30, it says, a heart at peace gives life to the body. Pause there for just a second. When you are at peace, when you have enough margin to rest, it gives life to your body. But envy rots the bones. Man, what a picture. Envy rots the bones. Stress affects the body. It affects the immune system. Ever noticed that? When you push, and then you stop pushing, all of a sudden you have a cold. Finally, your immune system is like, all right, Bubba, now it's time to work on your body. Many sicknesses are a result of anxiety and stress. I still remember one of my counselors reminding me that people in my area of ministry, pastoral ministry, that one of the biggest killers is heart attacks. You know why? Because preachers tend to push, and all the while you're making your heart do more than it should. You can't be relaxed and jealous at the same time. You can't. Ever come to the Thursdays, not the Thursdays, the Thanksgiving lunches we have, or the Easter lunches? We go through that line. Your plate is ginormous, It's full, and you feel like, man, I got everything right here. And then you see somebody pass by with mashed potatoes and gravy, and suddenly your plate doesn't look that good. Comparison steals your gratitude. It really does. One handful with peace is better than two handfuls with panic and anxiety. What are you chasing after? What are you chasing after? And is it costing your peace? Name it specifically. What is it that you're chasing? Are you chasing approval? Like you want somebody to think you're cool, you're all that? Are you chasing control? Is it money? Is it your parents' voice still in your head? Is it an image of what you think where you ought to be? Is it fear of disappointing someone you care deeply for? Is it that you're trying to prove that you're enough? What is it? You can't slow down on the outside until you deal with what's driving you on the inside. What's driving you? Trying to make a name out of yourself? Hey, listen, I'm not trying to knock down ambition, like I said. Ambition is good, but without boundaries, it's a bulldozer. It's a bulldozer. If you don't know what's pushing you, it is very hard to say no to the next thing. Which leads me to the one word that we have to learn that overloaded people hate is learn to say no. It's learn to say no. In Proverbs chapter 20, verse 25, it says, it is a trap. It is a what? It's a trap to dedicate something rashly and only later consider one's vows. It's a trap. I want you to look at your neighbor, even if you don't have a neighbor, pretend it's the Holy Spirit next to you, and tell your neighbor, it's a trap. Come and tell your neighbor, it's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap to dedicate something rashly and only later to consider one's vows. In other words, it's a trap to say yes too quickly and think about the cost later. It's a trap. Just the other day, I was at the convenience store, and for those of you who've been here long enough, we started the soccer league here in town many years ago, and we ran it for 12 years. For 12 years. Ran it successfully for as many years as we had it running. And then at some point, we felt like God was saying, you need to give that to the community, you need to give that to the school. And so we passed the baton to the school. It's like, it's yours, here it is. It was hard to do, but we passed the baton. Well, the other day in the convenience store, one of my coaches at the time, he was like, hey, Jesse, I don't know if you've heard, like the coach here, the soccer coach is leaving. He's going to Florida, I think. And I was like, any chance you can restart the league? And I was like, I don't know, dude. And I was like, no, man, I think we could do it successfully. I'll help out, and maybe we can get the old squad together and make it happen. And I'm thinking, I don't know. And it's like, who knows? Maybe the Lord. And this is a Catholic guy that doesn't go to church, by the way. He's appealing to, my good senses, right? And maybe the Lord brought me here to talk with you. And I looked at him and I was like, maybe the devil brought you here to talk to me too. Have you considered that? I was like, you know what? Let me pray about it. Let me think about it. Give me several weeks. Give me at least 2 weeks. I'll pray about it, sincerely pray about it, and I'll get back with you. Give me at least 2 weeks. I was trying to buy myself enough time, right, to not say yes too rashly, too quickly. The answer is going to be no, because I'm learning how to say no. This message is not from a place of, man, look at me, how I've conquered busyness. It's really coming from a place of, like, we're walking this together. I'm learning what it means to rest in Christ. I'm learning what it means to listen to the voice of God when he says, I want you to stop that. That's not good for you. And if you continue, I will oppose it. I'm learning that. We're traveling together. Matter of fact, almost this time last year, in the fall of last year, after August, I felt like the Lord saying, hey, you need to back up from a lot of the boards you have. I was involved in so many boards. And I felt like the Lord said, that's it. You need to eject of all your boards, every one of them. And I want you to invest just in my church. And that's it. I was like, all right. Usually the person is pushing, outward. I felt like, okay, God. And I'm learning what it means to abide and be like, okay, Jesus, I'm listening. I'm listening. And you know what? It's so much more peaceful, my life. And I've regained so many more moments with my children, even though 3 of them are in college, I'm still having even more fruitful time with them. In Proverbs 20:25, it says, it is a trap to dedicate something rashly. It's a trap. We tend to say yes because maybe we don't want to disappoint someone, or we want to be liked. Or like I said, we feel guilty. For some of you, it comes from a good place. Nobody else stepped up. And you felt like, you know what? If no one's going to step up, I'm going to step up. For some of you, maybe it was easier to step up than having the awkward conversation, asking somebody if they could do it. Listen, every yes has a cost attached to it. When you say yes, you may be saying no to rest. When you say yes, you may be saying no to dinners with your family. When you say yes, you may be saying no to your health, or no to prayer, or no to sleep, or no to what God actually called you to do. In Matthew 5:37, it says, all you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. In other words, be truthful, be clear, be simple. Yes means yes, and no means what? No. But we have trouble doing that, don't we? A yes, when you know it was a no, is from the evil one, because it's a lie. When we say, okay, I'll do it, but in our mind we're like, I'm not going to do this. I ain't got time for this. Then your yes wasn't a yes. Your yes was a distortion of the truth. Or you say, yes, I'll do it, and then don't show up. According to this verse, that comes from the evil one, the father of lies. When I look at it that way, that passage, boy, it's really convicting. Really convicting. In other words, don't manipulate, don't over-explain, don't make promises you can't keep, don't say yes with your mouth while your soul is screaming, no. Let me give you some advice, a little tidbit of information, a phrase that's helped me a lot. These two phrases have helped me tremendously. And the first one is this. When somebody asks you if you could do something, this is one of my two responses. One, it would be like, thank you for asking. I'll have to pass on it, but thank you. Some of you have heard that from my lips. Or how about, this is another one that I use. Thank you for the invitation. Oh my gosh, thank you for the invitation. I'm not able to do it, but thank you so much for the invite. You know, it's affirm, drop the news, yes or no, and then show some gratitude. I'm telling you, it throws off everybody. Even the person in McDonald's, or they want to try and upsell you, or sometimes they're like, hey, do you want to donate to the poor little kids of Africa, or wherever they're from, right? Or they have cancer, and I'm like, man, how can you say no? It's like, man, thank you for the invitation to do that. I'll pass, but man, thanks a lot, appreciate it. They're like, okay. Try it on the phone. It works on the phone too. Pick up now you're empowered to pick up the phone. It's like they're trying to sell you something. It's like, man, I really appreciate this call. No, I can't do it, but man, I really appreciate that. Appreciate the call. And watch how it starts changing you, but also the people that are calling you or that are asking you. Just don't do it to me. I'm just saying, if I ask you, please say yes. But you know what? This isn't selfish. This isn't selfish. Christ followers serve. But serving God is not being available for every request you get. Jesus had boundaries. There was needs that he didn't meet. There were sicknesses that he didn't heal. There were sermons that he didn't preach. There were sermons that he stopped short and made him shorter. There were sermons he did that were confusing. He didn't take the time to explain. Jesus worked away from crowds. You're not more spiritual than Jesus, right? Filling up your calendar doesn't make you more spiritual. It's like helping somebody move. Ever gotten the call or the ask, hey, can you help me move? I don't know about you. I'm like, sure, without counting the cost. And then you show up. You think it's going to be boxes and maybe a couch, right? You show up. No, it's like it's the third floor. The elevator is broken. And also there's a piano. And at that point, you're like, what did I get into? I didn't ask enough questions. That's what happened. That's what happened. It's always easier to get in than it is to get out. Help me out. Is it easy to get in debt? Is it easier to be in debt or save? Help me out. Not trick question. Debt is easier, right? It's easier to get in. How about bad relationships? Is it easier to get in a bad relationship or a good relationship? Which one is easier? Bad relationship, really easy. It's easier to get in than it is to get out. How about trouble? Oh my gosh, very familiar with trouble growing up. Is it easier to get into trouble or out of trouble? It's so easy to get into trouble. So this one's going to be convicting to most of you, especially me. How about weight gain? Is it easy to gain it? Or is it easy to just be thin without doing anything? It's easy to gain it. It's easy. And many of us, that's what we're doing. We're just taking the easy road and saying yes when we should have said no. Or in some situations, saying no when we should have said yes. So choose commitments carefully and prayerfully. Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. Did you get that? Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should do it. Sometimes it's the opportunity that they need, whoever they are, to grow, to say, I can't do it. So here's a couple questions that will help you in this area to be able to say no, or before you say yes, and that is asking the question, is this mine to carry? And what will this yes require from me? What will I have to give up to add this? Because if you keep adding without subtracting, eventually your life collapses under the weight of your yeses. It collapses under the weight of your yeses. Here's a practical tool. Create a what matters most list, not a what can I fit in list, like I'm so accustomed to do. What matters most list. Saying no creates space, but Sabbath teaches us what to do with that space. Because some of you may be like, I'm going to drop a whole bunch of things, but you don't know what to do with Sabbath, with rest. Number 3, you start showing your pace or slowing down your pace when you obey God's rhythm of rest. When you obey God's rhythm of rest. Many of us are not obeying God's rhythm of rest. We're not obeying it. Just being honest, especially here, Americans, we like to push the envelope. We like to go hard. In Mark chapter 2, verse 27, it says, Then he said to them, the Sabbath was made for man, not the man of the Sabbath, or not man for the Sabbath. At the time, religious leaders, the Pharisees mostly, were making the Sabbath this very heavy-handed rule. Instead of a life-giving gift from God, it was giving just this hardship to people. And Jesus comes along and he says, listen, the Sabbath is made for you. It's made for your benefit. God gave rest as a gift, not a guilt trip. Not a guilt trip. Isn't it ironic that, well, I should speak for myself. Isn't it ironic for me, maybe you too, that when you rest, you're like, I feel so guilty. I struggle with that. Yesterday, I didn't do much, and I struggled with that. I was like, I need to fix something, do something. I'm just going to take a trip to Walmart, I got to do something. The AC is busted up. Okay, let me see if I can try and figure it out. By the way, I didn't figure it out. Apparently, you got to be some type of electrician or AC or whatever, I was like, all right, I guess ChatGPT is right on this one. But it's like, I was antsy, right? I want you to listen to Exodus 20, verse 8 through 11. As a matter of fact, I really just want you to listen to the first word. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. I want to emphasize that remember. You know why God says remember? Because he knew you would forget. That's why. That you would forget that you're human, that you have limitations, that you forget to stop, that you forget that the world will keep spinning without you. That maybe you'll forget that you're not God. He is God. In Psalm 127, verse 2, it says, In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat. Pause here for a second. I'm going to change it just a little bit for our particular context. I'm going to read it again with a little change, if it's okay with you guys. In vain, you rise early and stay up late, toiling with Twitter all day long. Or toiling for a video in YouTube. Am I stepping on any toes yet? For he grants sleep to those he loves. You don't have to raise your hand. I'll raise mine. How many of you have lost sleep because you were checking out Twitter or Facebook? You kept on going. You called it education. That's what I do. It's like, oh, I love history, right? I'm like, another history lesson. And then, bada bam, it's really late. You're like, I got to get up early. And then you wake up early like I did this morning, like at 5. And I'm like, back to the historical channels. Like, oh, look at this. The Roman Empire. This is how they fell. Oh, my gosh. This is the worst day in 536 AD. Wow. There was no sun. Like, for what? And according to this passage, in vain, and you rise early and stay up late, toiling with your videos all night long, for he grants sleep to those he loves. I'm not attacking hard work, by the way. God honors hard work. He does. He honors hard work. Hard work is not part of the curse, by the way. We were made for hard work. The part of the curse is the fact that it's a struggle. But what he's doing is just confronting anxious work. See, faithful work is different than anxious work. Very different, very different. Faithful work versus anxious work. And the Sabbath reminds us that I'm not the Savior. I'm not ultimately the provider. I'm not holding the universe together. God is. What should you do on your Sabbath? I'm going to give you some recommendation that I got from a video long ago. First of all, during the Sabbath, it might be a Sabbath moment. When you get home, you have your Sabbath moment. It might be 15 minutes. It might be more. Whatever, right? It's up to what you have. Or it might be at the end of the week, one day. Rest your body, first of all. Rest your body. If you don't take time off, your body will force you to take time off. Have you noticed that? Eventually, the cortisol levels are so high, and you get sick. Our best requires rest. Number 2, recharge your emotions. Maybe spend some time with quietude, time with people you love, conversations, right? Would it surprise you that Jesus napped during a storm? That's where we get siesta from. No, that's not where we get it from. That's where we justify siesta. Jesus napped during a storm. Do something that's life-giving. Some of you feel guilty relaxing. Some of you, if you were to nap, you'd say like what I say, I wasn't asleep. I wasn't sleeping. It's like, well, that sounded like a snore. It wasn't my snore. I don't know whose that was. It was the TV. The TV is not on. I don't care. It's part of my YouTube historical channel. I left it on. Some of you, the thought of having that. Well, you may be recharging when you take a nap. If Jesus could rest and the world still function, you can rest too. Some practical advice for some of you. Those of you who work with your mind, maybe Sabbath means you work with your hands. That's me. During the week I'm working with the mind, and so I'm doing a lot of mind work, It might surprise some of you. It's like, no, really? So I'm doing some mind work during the week, whether preparing messages or talking with people. And the weekend, I'm ready for hand work. That's why I like working with the cars or outside. That's my Sabbath. I'm working with my hands. If you work with your hands during the week, your Sabbath might be working with your mind. Maybe reading or praying, maybe being quiet, have thoughtful conversation, maybe study something new. Do something with your mind. The point is not to replace one kind of exhaustion for another. And for some of you, you need to refocus your spirit when you're in the Sabbath, in your point of rest. Refocusing your spirit is simply put, is like getting back to the heart of worship and adding perspective to your life. Just getting back to connecting with Jesus. The hobby can't do that. It can't realign you. The sport can't realign you. Netflix can't realign you. God is the one that realigns your perspective. It's like that gas light. I don't know how many of you see that gas light. You're like, man, I got about 60 more miles. So you keep on tracking with that gas light. And you're like, and then it doesn't show anymore, like how many miles. You're like, I think I've done 40. And you keep on going, right? And then next thing you know it, bam, you're in the side of the road. That's what we do with our space, with our time. Like, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and then burnout. Rest is not quitting, by the way. Rest is trusting. It's trusting. Number 4, and lastly, you start slowing your pace when you wait for God's timing. When you wait for God's timing. In Ecclesiastes 3:11, it says, He has made everything beautiful in His time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Pause there for just a moment. The word eternity in the Hebrew can also be translated as veil, And I ascribe to that definition for this word for the reason of the verse that follows. It says, beautiful in His time. He has also set a veil in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. What's comforting here is that God makes things beautiful in His time. What's frustrating is that we don't always know His time. That's the veil. We don't know everything that God is doing. We want God's plan, but we also don't want God's timing. And God's the one that sees the big picture. He's the one that sees the whole movie, not just a frame. Not just a frame. Faster isn't always better. Faster isn't always better. I don't know if you make any brisket. I don't. I like to eat it, but I don't make it. Like most things, I like to eat it. Don't necessarily make it. But brisket, if you take it out of the grill, whatever it's at, wherever the brisket was at, you take it out of with that. Now you really can tell the scope and the depth of what I really don't know about brisket. But when you take it out early, what happens? Is it done? It's not done. It's tough. Some things only get tender with time. Some things only get stronger with time. Some things only get clear with time. Some things only get beautiful with time. Habakkuk 2:3 says, for the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks to the end, and it will prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay. God is talking to Habakkuk. He's saying, hey, there's a revelation coming, and it's not your time, it's my time. Just wait for it. Just wait for it patiently. Wait for God to move patiently. Oftentimes, we don't like to wait because we think delay is denial. When in reality, it may not be that at all. Waiting doesn't mean that God is absent. It doesn't mean that God is absent. A slower life with God is better than a rushed life without God. And this morning, I want you to just pick out one thing. Not 10 things, one thing that you're like, you know what? Jesus showed me that, and that's the one thing I'm going to do. In just preparation for this series, I was reading Psalm 51, verse 10, where it says, create in me a pure heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit within me. I'm better at that than I was, say, a year ago, where I do feel renewed. Oh, but that would be our prayer, like, God, create in me a pure heart and renew a steadfast spirit within me. That only happens in the margins. And we'll talk more about that next week. Let me pray for us. Lord Jesus,